that. Hello and welcome to the new radio show here on Fox Sports Net, Wheeling, Pittsburgh. What was it? Circus, midgets, and bar fights. That's what that music there, Jared the WaterBoy, reminds me of.
Absolutely.
It's just happy music.
Yep.
It's just happy music. We're happy people here. We're not happy because the Stil'rs aren't in the playoffs, but we're happy people in general because football season is still going on. And in case you didn't know this, Jared, the USFL is opening up league play April 23rd in Canton, Ohio at Tom Benson Stadium with your Pittsburgh Maulers of the USFL opening up the season. What do you think of that?
I was actually unaware of that. That's really, really awesome.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But, I'd love to do some Maulers talk, but there's only 6 fans out there. No, not actually. We have the Pittsburgh Maulers Chalk Talk page, and we have 600 members on the Pittsburgh Maulers Chalk Talk page. So we'll get into some Maulers talk here on Fox Sports Wheeling, Pittsburgh. All right, kids, in case you didn't know, you're listening to the Stil'rs Chalk Talk show here on Fox Sports Wheeling, Pittsburgh. I'm your host, Randy the Tank Tantlinger. They call me Tank because I'm like as wide as a water tank. I am going to slap you for laughing at. And he's Jared the WaterBoy Kanter. The WaterBoy. You're stuck with that nickname. Do you like it?
I mean, it'll do.
What did your friends say when they listened to last week's show? And they called you the WaterBoy.
Well, I mean, that's about the stage that I'm at right now.
Yeah, and you might even get demoted beyond that. The only level lower than the WaterBoy is Jockstrap Kid. That's you.
Funny enough, in my time trying to get my foot in the door with the Stil'rs organization, that's a joke that I've come back to a couple of times in all my emails and my conversations. I just want to be in front of the right person to impress. If that's cleaning jock straps, that's where I'll start.
You told that to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I did. I told that to Omar Khan, as a matter of fact.
You're out of your mind. How I met the WaterBoy kid. So I'm in Latrobe at training camp this year. And I'm standing there on the sidelines, and it was like 108 degrees that day and this and that. And the skinny kid beside me was doing PR relations and helping the Stil'rs at training camp. And I started talking with him, and I'm like, whoa, this kid's got something on the ball. He's not your typical 23-year-old moron who doesn't know anything. And plus, he went to the University of Alabama, my second favorite football team, as you know, behind the PITT Panthers.
Roll Tide.
Yeah, roll Tide, roll. Did I ever tell you about, I think I did. I told you that story. I sent my football tapes back in 1980-something down to Alabama to play fullback, and I got a letter back from Bear Bryant himself. Did I tell you that?
Yeah, you
I did. We have no use for a slow white fullback is what it said. So right there in the frame somewhere on the wall. I'll find it later.
That's that famous Saban honesty.
No, this was Bear Bryant.
Oh, Bear.
Yeah. How young do you think I am? That Bear Bryant day. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Make sure you're talking in a microphone. Nobody wants to hear you.
I didn't have the pleasure. I've spent a lot of time reading about and even conversating with Saban, but Bear was a little bit before my time.
You talk with Saban?
I mean, we're not exactly buddies, but he could pick me out of a lineup.
Why? You've been arrested? I'm sorry, you threw it at me. You've been arrested?
No.
Then why the hell would you be in a lineup?
That was just my anagram for the extent to which he knows me. If you put 4 guys in front of him and ask him which one is Jared, I think he could pick me out.
I want your driver's license. We're doing a background check on you. Why you're bringing up a lineup. You and Kevin Spacey and the usual suspects. All right, let's talk a little bit about last week's performance in the NFL playoffs. Had various expectations myself of what was going on. I think the stunner for me on 2 levels, and we'll go through all 4 games, are the Giants laying an egg and the Bills with a DeMar Hamlin hangover. But let's break these games down as so they went. First up, I hate the fact that the Philadelphia Sea Chickens are moving on. I hate everything to do with Philadelphia. Ask Max Talbot about the Philadelphia Flyers. Ask anybody that's even had the pleasure to drive near Philadelphia. I hate that city. I hate everything about it. And I was really hoping for the Giants to whoomp them.
Yeah, no, it really surprised me that they weren't able to come out and make it a little bit more of a game, you know? I didn't expect the Giants to come out and win by any means, but I did expect them to have a competent game plan coming in against a team that they know really well. But the Eagles got off to a really hot start early on. They put points on the board. They moved the Giants away from what it was that they wanted to do, which was run the ball, control the clock, and give themselves an opportunity at the end of the game. The Eagles had 28 points by halftime. That shook the ball, that shook the whole team, and they didn't know what to do with themselves in the second half. It ended up just being a slaughter.
What happened to Saquon Barkley? I mean, the week before, he wills that team to a victory. No doubt about it. He only had, as far as receiving yards, 2 for 21 yards. Rushing yards, they held him. And again, that Eagles defense is good.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's good.
Specifically that front. Their run defense has been incredible all year long. The Vikings, that team that Saquon Barkley put away by himself, schedule adjusted ranked 31st against the run throughout
Really? So that makes why the kid out of Penn State went on 9 carries for 61 yards. Although when he was hitting a hole, 6.8 yards per run, which ain't too shabby against that Philadelphia Sea Chicken defense.
But when they found themselves down by 28 at halftime, running the ball, even though it was working to a degree, is no longer an option. And that's where the Eagles won the game.
Well, they forced quarterback Daniel Jones, and I love this kid. I love his ability to see the field, move the ball around, and I like it a lot. He's going to continue to grow, no doubt about it. But they had him scrambling around, 6 carries, 24 yards. He was running for his life a couple times. I mean, I would too with that Sea Chicken defensive line.
He couldn't force the secondary to stay back more than 10 yards the whole game. He had 15 completions on 27 attempts for 135 yards. That's less than 10 yards of completion here. He wasn't putting any pressure on the secondary at all, so they were all able to cool inside the box together and wait for Saquon Barkley to take that ball out of Daniel's hands.
Yeah, and when you look at Richie James only putting up 7 receptions for 51 yards, you're not going anywhere with that.
That was the matchup advantage that they had. You looked at the one portion of the Eagles secondary that has been weak so far this year, and it's been covering the slot corner. So you needed a big game out of Richie James, and based off of the fact that the offense just wasn't running the way that they wanted it to, they weren't able to get him the production that they wanted out of him. Even on 7 targets, it was clear that 7 receptions. It was clear he was a focal point in the game plan, but they couldn't really make it work to enough efficacy.
Well, there is no doubt about it that the Sea Chickens are what they are at 15-3, rolling on. New York Jets, I mean, great season, and in a 10-8, 1 tie, getting to the divisional round. Kudos to them. That's a team of the future, no doubt about it. If they can get another combination running back in there with Barkley, because remember, Barkley's got some tread off his tire now. Oh, yeah. I mean, he really has. I mean, average career for a running back is 3 years at best. But he ran hard against the Vikings, so we will see what's going up there in New York. Have no problem with the Giants getting better and moving forward, especially if they're going to beat the Philadelphia Sea Chickens, because we're talking about the NFC. If we were talking about, first of all, time out. I don't need anybody else getting any better, any gooder in the AFC. We got enough problems in-house with the Stil'rs, let alone anybody getting any gooder in the AFC. So that's for sure. So I can support the Giants. You know, Bill Parcells, Lawrence Taylor, those old school days, makes me a Giants fan.
Fair enough. I think there's brighter days ahead for the organization. This year was a success, without a doubt. Nobody came into the year predicting a divisional round run for these New York Giants.
No, not at all. Even with Weebly Wobbly head coach.
They discovered an identity. They found a little bit of confidence, and I think that they'll be a contender to make it to the playoffs again next year, which isn't something you've been able to say about the Giants for a number of years now.
All right, moving on to that Saturday evening game. Absolutely stunned. I think everybody is. The Jaguar and Chefs. Did you watch the Snickers commercial I sent you?
I did.
Is that funny?
Yes, very.
It's very, great googly. For you folks that don't know what I'm talking about, last week I told Jared the WaterBoy, if you remember back to the 90s, there was a Snickers commercial where the guy's painting on the Chiefs' name in the end zone, and a player comes up to him and goes, "Who's the Chefs? The Chefs!" The old man left off the I. And anyway, great Snickers commercial. I got to send you the Batman one. Did I send you the Batman one?
I don't think so.
Oh, it's even better than that. All right, so the Jacksonville Kitty Cats barely got by the week before. Where they got that breath of fresh air to come back and beat the San Diego, we always screw it up, Chargers was amazing. The fact that was this a game, Jared, that Jacksonville got it up, realized they could play some football, and played with the Chefs of Kansas City, or did the Chiefs have a bad off game? Which of the two was it?
Well, the biggest piece of it is obviously the fact that Patrick Mahomes got his high ankle sprain, early on in the game, and the Jaguars kept pace through pretty much the entirety of the game, but I think that was largely in part to the fact that Patrick Mahomes wasn't as mobile. He's not capable of the awe-inspiring, jaw-dropping things that he does because the game just looks slower whenever he's playing it. So Trevor Lawrence, I felt like Patrick Mahomes was brought down to Trevor Lawrence's level as opposed to Trevor Lawrence rising to Patrick Mahomes' level.
It's an interesting way to look at it. There's no doubt with Mahomes, the rattlesnake, and his injury, he was limited. Trevor Lawrence, though, 24 for 39, 217 yards, 1 TD.
You don't see the attempts downfield. Once again, this is 24 completions in a game that you asked your quarterback to throw 40 times, and he had less than 220 cumulative passing yards. And you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, who average 31 point something points a game, one of the highest scoring teams in the NFL for the past half decade. You go in there, you take some shots. If anyone knows this, I would have thought it'd be Doug Peterson,
right,
given the amount of times the Chiefs have been the brick wall that he's run into, and they just didn't do that. And granted, they didn't necessarily have as much reason to because Mahomes wasn't putting up 31 points, limping up and down the field, but they were trying not to lose that game more so than they were trying to go out there and win it, and I think that's what cost him it.
See, I would have relied more on NTN for one thing and get that ground game going. I forget the Jaguars' tight end name, but he's got a pair of hands on him too.
Evan Ingram.
Yeah, Evan Ingram. Love this guy. He only had 31 yards and 5 receptions. I get NTN involved. I get the tight end. They don't really have that bust-out wide receiver down there unless you see it any different than I do.
The closest thing they've got to it is Zay Jones, and he's not someone that's going to make a spectacular catch. He's someone that is going to capitalize on the opportunities as they present themselves to him.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. He's not a chase like the Bengals have. He's not. He's not even a George Pickens.
It's all depth of target, though. He's the only guy on their team that had a respectable average on his depth of target. Depth of reception here is 16.6 for him. Nobody else was it above 10 for. Christian Kirk had 7 receptions, only 50 yards. They weren't trying him deep. They weren't applying pressure. And when Mahomes got hurt, that was your opportunity to apply that pressure.
Absolutely. Get him scared with NTN. Get them coming. Get the linebackers coming up a little bit. Start pounding with Etienne. Hit the tight end. He can catch anything you throw at him. Ingram. then maybe try the long ball.
Yeah.
But
10 carries for Travis Etienne, 6.2 a clip in a game that was a one possession.
He should have 30 carries.
Pretty much the whole time.
Should have had 30
he
carries.
wasn't game scripted out. They didn't use him.
No, they did not. I mean, he's a proven quantity at that point. To me, and Trevor Lawrence can do what he can if you get him feeling comfortable at this point. I still don't think he's comfortable in his skin in the NFL level. We'll talk about Jalen Hurts as we move on here, but Jalen Hurts, a young player, looks comfortable in his skin. Even Tua looks comfortable in his skin.
And you know what's interesting about both those guys is this year, Tyreek Hill was put in front of Tua Tagovailoa and A.J. Brown was put in front of Jalen Hurts.
Say that again.
Okay.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Tua Tagovailoa.
That's amazing. Of course, you were in Alabama.
I went to school with the guy. Yeah, I actually met him. My girlfriend knows him pretty well.
So you could say Tua
I can't say
Tua.
That's what having an elite wide receiver does for your quarterback.
Yep.
That's what Trevor Lawrence could very well be missing here.
Well, you would expect that the Jaguars will go out and find that wide receiver to work with him.
They just paid Christian Kirk $17 million. And he was great this year. He looked like he
Where was he last week?
But $17 million.
Where was he last week?
That's what I'm suggesting is that you invested the money. You got to make it work. You can't go out and spend another $10 million on the wide receiver position.
So the question to you was it the failure of the chefs to beat and put away the Jaguars? Because this thing came down to the end. Was it the Mahomes situation? I think the Jaguars, as I was watching that game, it just looked like there was no, how should I say, rhythm or flow to that offense for the Jaguars.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And somewhat inconsequential because if the Jaguars had made it past the Chiefs, I feel as though they'd end up wiped by the Bengals. I think we could see a really great game with the Chiefs in there, but I am of a strong belief that the Jaguars missed an opportunity here. With Patrick Mahomes getting hurt, I think Doug Peterson really dropped the ball. There were a number of facets of the game that they could have attacked the Chiefs in that they just didn't. They didn't diversify their attack, and it ended up costing them in the long run.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Doug Peterson did leave some scraps on the table there. And he is a good offensive mind. Certainly, the Jaguars are in better position with Peterson than Urban. I'm a effing liar. Meyer, Oscar Meyer, Urban Meyer. Why is he even on television? I mean, isn't his credibility blown?
I would imagine, but
why? I don't get it. I mean,
it makes for good television.
Hey, the guy's a liar. He's an idiot. He hires steroid-juiced-up weight coaches. Hey, you're listening to Stil'rs Chalk Talk here on Fox Sports, Wheeling, Pittsburgh. I'm Tank Tantlinger. He is Jared. WaterBoy. Cantner. We'll leave you at WaterBoy status. You did good. You do good. I'm going to give you a cookie after the show. All right, when we come back, we're going to be talking a little bit more about last week's games and previewing this week's games. I want to talk about Mike Hilton. Mike Hilton, who single-handedly might have saved the 2019 season. Yeah, you remember Mike Hilton. He's the guy that's going to the AFC Championship this week with the Kitty Cats that your Steelers let go. Anyway, a lot more to talk about than the quarterback. Mike McMahon will join me in a third segment as we, do a little review on the Steelers' 2022 defensive season. We'll be right back to, circus fairies and bar talk?
That's what you got. It's circus fairies and bar fights.
Bar fights! We'll talk right back. The guys over there in Steubenville love bar fights.